discussion was around for that.
Census provides the facts essential to government for policy making, planning, administration, and decision making. This facilitates the development of socio-economic policies, enhance the welfare of the population, as well as provide important data for the analysis and appraisal of the changing patterns of rural-urban movement and concentration. Population census also shows the geographical distribution of the population according to variables like occupation, education, as well as the socio-economic characteristics of the population and the labor force. Nigeria, like its counterparts across the world, is investing for the first time in a digital population census so as to generate an inclusive data that will secure the future of Nigerians. Well, welcome to another episode of Nigeria Today. I am your carrier, Clinton. Thanks for joining us. Now, joining for the discussion is the Chairman, Management Committee, Association for the Advancement of Family Planning, Dr. Ejike Oji. You're welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Ejike is also the CSO, Focal Point FP 2030. Now, also joining us via Zoom is Associate Professor Sunday Adedini is of the Federal University, Oye Ekiti, and is also the keynote speaker at the event marking the World Population Day celebration at the State House, Abuja. You're welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I'll start with you, Prof. Today is the World Population Day. And for the theme of this year, globally, it was actually talking about, ensuring that everyone is counted. He said, leave no one behind, count everyone. Now, how critical is it for every individual to be counted?
Thank you very much. So in terms of everyone to be counted, is very crucial. And today being the World Population Day, July 11, 2024, the United Nations has really come up with a very critical topic of ensuring that everyone gets counted, because it's the issue of having inclusive data, which will leave no one behind in terms of infants, children, young people, adolescents, adults, as well as the elderly, people living with disability. And so in terms of ensuring that everyone gets counted, census has been regarded as a veritable source of data that covers everyone, just like different demographics that I've mentioned. And so the theme of this year, chosen by the United Nations, offers us a great opportunity as Nigerians to reflect on our journeys, on our aspirations, and our quest for socioeconomic development. Because if we really want to achieve the various critical socioeconomic development goals that the current administration really come up with, then the power of inclusive data becomes very critical. If our steps, our economic, socioeconomic plannings, all of them are data-driven, and if they are evidence-based, then we can be sure that we will be able to achieve our goals. But if our plans, our steps, our strategies are not driven by data and not supported by evidence, we will not really know whether we're making progress or whether we are retrogressing or whether we're stagnated. So in a nutshell, the power of inclusive data is very key, and census offers that as a veritable source that gives us the opportunity to cover everyone and leaving no one behind.
Thank you very much. Now, actually, Dr. Ejike, now he talked about how important it is for us to reflect on how far we've gone and how important it is for there to be, available data. When you talk of data, the correct data. Now, what role will enhanced, available data play in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I want to quote the Vice President this morning at the State House, because he was the chief host, so to speak. He says, data is life. And then all of us in the development world know that even at the lowest level of management, a manager needs information. And what is that information? Data. Credible data. Without credible data, you might be planning for 5 people, but you don't know your target is actually 10. And then for a country like Nigeria, it is so important that whatever you're trying to do, you must do with data. Otherwise, you will find out halfway through that all the lofty plans you have, all the investment you have made investment in futility. Let me give you an example. At the turn of independence in 1960, Nigeria was about 42.5 million. Britain that colonized us was about 50 million, around that figure. By 2006, when we had the last census, we were 140 million, but Britain at that time was just about 62 million. Now, we haven't had any other census for 18 years, but Britain has had census almost every 10 years. Now they are about 68 million. So you can see that data alone will tell you that our population is growing on an annual rate of about 3.2%. And then that means even if you use that, those are estimations based on the last count. That estimation might be completely off. And I give you a simple example of this. In 2018, our Association for the Advancement of Family Planning did our 2-yearly biannual conference here in Abuja. And then there was this issue of which data do we believe. There were 3 sets of data speaking to the same issue. Like that is the MCPR, which is the contraceptive prevalence rates, modern methods. One said 20, one said 19, one said 17. It was not until the National Demographic Health Survey came out in 2018 that they now said it is 12. So you could see that all those other data that we are collecting were all estimations. But the real household survey that produced the results after the NDHS was announced was the real data. And then for us that are advocates, we're saying, we are in a population crisis. Let nobody be deceived. Because all the 3 things that show that you're in a population crisis, we'll have them. We'll have a youthful bulge. 75% of our population is under the age of 34. And those youth, we're not really investing in them the way we should. So what is it? Some of them are leaving. That's why Japa syndrome came as a coin word now. And then thereafter, when you see nationals killing nationals. So if we had been following our data, we would have known the way our population is growing. We do not have enough resources, no matter how efficient we manage them. We will not be able to take that growing population. We would have made us make a very solid policy on family planning so that our fertility rates will be in tandem with our population growth rates. So now we're not even in transition. We have a window period driven by data. By 2030, if we do not bring down our fertility rate to about 4, it's going to be difficult for Nigeria to transit. And then you know what that means? By 2050, By this estimation we have now, will be 450 million. Will be the third largest country in the world. And the resources are not infinite. We have finite resources on the ground. So data will speak to the managers of our country to say, this is, no matter how emotional you want to be on about anything, but this is what the data tells you. And that's why I want to continue to quote Mr. Vice President, data is life.
Thank you very much. Now, let's talk to the Associate Prof via Zoom there. Now, we've heard from Dr. Oji how important it is to have credible, according to him, credible, data. And from his estimation, if we are going by what he's saying, by 2050, we should be heading towards the 450 million. Why the resources are not limited. Now, how do you think data-driven approach, to governance can address disparities in government policies, in health, education, among others?
Thank you very much. So data is really, really powerful. And if accurate data is used, which does not tell lie, it really shows clearly where we have the need and where we should really channel our resources. But if we do not make use of data, one thing is to have data, another thing is data to be of quality. And I often say that no data at all is better than poor quality data. Just buttressing the point raised by Dr. Ejike in your studio over there, having different data sources, and then one is saying 17 of contraceptive prevalence rate, another 19, another 20, another 12 when indigenous came out. So that speaks clearly about the reliability of data. So 2 points. It's important for us to have data, but it's not just data, but data that is of high quality, that is credible, that is acceptable, that speaks the real issue, that speaks to that address the issues accurately. And so once you have the data that is accurate, then it's very easy for us to have evidence-based planning, because we then know that this is the proportion of Nigerians under the age of 19, proportion of Nigerians that are young people, the proportion of Nigerians that will be of school-going age at certain points. Let me give you an instance. If we hope that in the next 5 years, we're going to be having 20 million school-going children getting into primary one. And we are planning for that. But because of lack of accurate data, maybe the actual situation on the ground is that we should be planning for 60 million, getting into the school. So the implication of that is that 60 million children will be managing what the classrooms, the teachers, as well as other different resources that 20 million children of school-going age should be using. 60 million will be using that. And so you can see how critical it is for us to have data for our planning. Countries like India, like China, if they have not really made use of data, I wonder what those countries will be today. We saw clearly some years ago, Nigeria was doing far better than China in terms of some social, some indicators, health indicators. For example, China used to be the country with the highest burden of maternal mortality. China used to be the country with the, India used to be the country with the highest burden of under 5 mortality. Because of using the power of inclusive data and doing appropriate planning, India was able to put some measures in place to address some of the critical issues that have brought them down. And now Nigeria is having that very not pleasant appellate of being the country with the highest burden of maternal mortality, highest burden of childhood mortality. And if you also want to say a country where it is most dangerous to be a mother. So these are the issues that really stare us at face. And the earlier we make our planning, our social economy strategies driven and implemented based on data, then the better for us. And let me pick this quickly just before I turn it over to you.
Prof, we'll come back to you on that. But right now, we want to take a break and listen to some informed views on the issue. Don't go away.
The World Population Day is an annual event designed to draw attention to topical issues on population and development. This year's theme is again a clarion call for us to ensure that we have up-to-date, comprehensive, accurate data that will enable us to plan for development. And in Nigeria, this year's theme especially calls for the much awaited and delayed National Population and Housing Census. As you may be aware, the last census was conducted 18 years ago. To continue to plan with information that is 18 years old is not good at all.
Leveraging on data will avail the government, even organization, to take data-informed decision. And I want to believe that with accurate data, with all-inclusive head count and out count in Nigeria, it will avail government of opportunity of forming informed decision as regard provision of infrastructural facility.
It is data that will help to do proper planning, to develop policies and programs that will address the needs of the people. Not having recent reliable data is only not giving all the tools, all the resources, and all the capacities with the needed information for decision makers to make the most appropriate decision.
Welcome back. This is still Nigeria Today, and we're looking at inclusivity in population data. And of course, I have two gentlemen with me, one via Zoom and one here in the studio. Dr. Ejike, you heard what, of course, a lot of persons had to say. Everybody is hammering on accurate data. Now, Nigeria is getting set for its first digital population and housing census. What is the expectation?
Well, for us, especially in the civil society and development world, we're saying the waiting is so grinding, we don't want to wait anymore. We're encouraging government, please do the census. And then if you know, doing a census is not something you just wake up and do. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes planning. And they have done that. I do know that they have spent almost 70 to almost 80% of the resources needed to do a comprehensive count. So it's just this last push. So that's why for some of us who are saying that if Nigeria has to move forward, the federal government has the renewed Hope Initiative with 8-point agenda. All those things can only be driven and successfully driven if we have a head count. And the thing that is so good is that if this head count is done now, even politically, is giving our governments what we call the baseline data, which in the next 4 years, they can look at the data again, even if it is a survey, something that can say, Nigerians, you see, this is where we are, this is what we have done. Because there's a lot of truth deficit in governance in Nigeria. And I can tell you, credible data will make people understand what government is doing, and now people will start believing governments. Because it's only when people believe their government that they bring their own personal and community input on the table for development. But if government is telling you something and what you're seeing anecdotally is the other way around, it's very difficult for you to support the programs and process of governance. So that's why we feel that the sooner we complete this census and have credible data that all of us are talking about, the better for Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Now back to you, Prof. Sunday. Now, because of the importance of, population, the census, that is why, of course, the United Nations, marked this day for World Population Day, creating awareness, on the importance of knowing how many we are, even in the world, not just, Nigeria, but down to our own country. Just like one of the speakers there said, he said it's been 18 years since we had the last census. Now, it appears there's been a challenge having, population census in Nigeria. As at when due? Now, how can we ensure that this, does not continue? How can we address this?
Oh, thank you very much. That is the question on the lip of everyone who knows the power of data, everyone who knows that inclusive data is very critical for planning. In order to address the issues, we really need to identify what the problems are. One is that there's need for sufficient political will in order to get census out as at when due. No doubt about it, to conduct census, you require humongous amount of resources. It's unlike routine survey, the demographic analysis survey, the highest number that we've had in terms of the number of cases will be around 40,000 individuals. But here we're talking about an exercise that is going to cover over 200 million individuals across the length and breadth of Nigeria. And so then it requires that there's need for sufficient political will in order to get decennial census out as it should be every 10 years. So that is one. Then two is also the point that we've emphasized earlier today, that census should really be taken as a purely scientific exercise. It's not supposed to be an issue that will be politicized, because in terms of planning, in terms of any part of the world, census should really be regarded as purely a scientific exercise that's useful for planning. So second critical point that I've mentioned is the need for us to depoliticize census to ensure that no political coloration is attached to it. And then number three, which is related to the first point I mentioned, is the issue of funding. How then do we mobilize resources? We cannot rely on the donor communities alone. They are doing a lot, but it will not be sufficient. So government, both at the national and subnational level, really need to put resources together and ensure sufficient financing in order for us to have the census conducted. Just like Dr. Ejike in the studio mentioned, those of us in academia, those of us in undertaking research, those of us who are demographers cannot wait to have the next census conducted. And we are really looking forward. And we're very happy to have the presence of His Excellency Vice President Kashim Shettima today. It shows that the current government knows the power of data, what data means. So we are really looking forward to have such support so that this last part of it in terms of...
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. With that, we draw the curtain on today's episode of Nigeria Today. We appreciate our guest. Joining us via Zoom was Associate Professor Sunday Adedini of the Federal University, Oye-Ekiti, and also the keynote speaker at the event marking the World Population Day celebration at the State House, Abuja. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution.
Thank you.
And also in the studio here, we have Dr. Ejike, the Chairman, Management Committee Association for the Advancement of Family Planning, and also the CSO Focal Point FP 2030. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution. And thank you for being part of the program. Remember, Nigeria Today airs weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can also check out this episode and others on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. I am Eukaria Clinton. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.